Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to yet another wonderful session at Tell Me Your Story. I'm Kanchana Banerjee. I'm an author. I have only two books to my name. Both my books are by HarperCollins, and the recent one, Nobody's Child, by HarperCollins, was published last year. And today I'm here for a very interesting conversation with a man who is possibly the most exciting person to talk to for a crime writer like me. So I welcome Mr. Deepak Rao to our session. Thank you, Deepak sir, for consenting to this and
Good
for
evening.
yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. So Deepak sir, he's a treasure trove of knowledge, information, experiences, and amazing stories, crime stories, police stories, and he's a police historian for Mumbai Police, and he has chronicled the history of Bombay, like the police force, the municipality board, and many other iconic organizations and structures in the city. And he is a true Mumbaiker at heart, from experiences and in his life. So I welcome you to this wonderful session, and I know you have many interesting events and interesting anecdotes to share with us. So Deepak sir, could you just start by telling our viewers a little bit about your background and your interest in Mumbai history and how that happened before we go into the cases?
See, I was born in Bombay. I studied at St. Xavier's High School and St. Xavier's College. Now, having grown up in Bombay, we were all interested in. I was going to school, and even just before I entered college, the trams were running around Bombay. Bombay was a different place altogether in the 50s and 60s. Anyway, coming to the point of Bombay, interest in the history of Bombay was always there. But as we went to college, we had Father Reverend John Correa Afonso, who was the principal, who inspired us to go dig into historical aspects of Bombay. And he told me to concentrate, and he told all of us to concentrate on institutions like the Bombay Municipal Corporation, the Bombay Port Trust, and the Bombay Police. Now, the Bombay Police was of special interest. I did, of course, work on Bombay Municipal Corporation, and they had officially appointed me in 2005 to do a work on the hydraulic engineering works of Bombay, all the water supply in Bombay. Having done that, the Commissioner of Police, Greater Bombay, in 2007, Mr. A.N. Roy, felt that it was worth having a coffee table book on the Mumbai City Police, whatever you call it. And since my research had been always on Bombay, he asked me to compile it in a coffee table book. So that was my second book after the Bombay water supply. Now, interest in the Bombay police goes back to my father and uncles, all who were in the police. So growing up in a police background, these things were very common. Talks of crime, talks of organization of the police, transfers of officers, and their work was a part of household culture. So policing was nothing new to me. Anyway, the years of research I went into extensive and intensive research of Bombay City Police organization, command, and structure over a period of about 200 years.
Yeah.
And when the first Commissioner of Police is appointed in 1864, December, one Sir Frank Suter, who served for 24 and a half years. So, and one of the commissioners later, Mr. S.M. Edwards, who has written the Gazetteer of Bombay, who has written a book on Bombay City Police. Based on all these original sources, it was a pleasure to delve into each and every year of the Bombay City Police, postmodern, 1865 onwards, basically.
So, sir,
a great organization, yes.
Would you have your coffee table book near you?
Yeah, it is in front of me. It is here in front of me.
So can you just lift the book in front of the phone camera so that our viewers can just take a look at the book? A little further up. Wonderful. Yeah, that's the iconic police headquarters building in Bombay.
Yeah, the office of the Commissioner of Police, Greater Bombay.
Yeah, true. Great. Okay. Lovely. So, sir, there's as a crime writer, and as a person who's very interested in true crime, I kind of do a lot of web search, a lot of net search to come up, to kind of find out about true crime and unsolved, cases, cold cases all over the world, in India, etc.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
like in your, like before we start talking about various cases down the ages, starting from 1940s, 1950s, and talking about
Yes.
an important case every decade. I
Yes.
just wanted to ask you that, as a person who has studied true crime and who has studied the police history,
Yes.
what would be your comment about the nature of crime, or the nature of the criminal cases that the police had to grapple with in the past, in the earlier decades, vis-a-vis now?
See, the crime of 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that those decades, the crime was different. Of course, today the same dacoity, robbery, and new crimes like cyber crime and new challenges are faced by the crime branch of the CID of the city or of the state. But if we go back in time, say just after independence, 19 already the Bombay CID, the crime branch of it, better known as Bombay CID, has already been famous all over the world by being what you call categorized as second to Scotland Yard. It
Yeah.
was done by some uh, European journalists pre-independence in Bombay, or in the Bombay newspapers, and this thing carried every important crime that was detected, which happened in the city and was detected successfully, got a lot of publicity all over the world in not only European English papers, but in England. At the same time, in American papers also were quite interested in the work of the Bombay CID, and they
Okay.
always used it. The second to none, second to none would be one term, but they used to say second to Scotland Yard, because they used to look upon them as a beacon light of detection of crime. And the organization of the Bombay Crime Branch CID had been based entirely in 1909 when it was started on the London
Yes.
CID, Scotland Yard, the headquarters. So
Okay.
Bombay CID's name was already famous all over the world by being called second to Scotland Yard. And post independence, 1949, there is a famous dacoity case. Everyone knows of the house of Tatas,
Yeah.
Bombay House, located in Flora Fountain in a lane then called Bruce Street. Now it is called Sir Homi Modi Street.
Mhm.
Now, in that early morning, the Tata oil mill wages, the salary is going, cash is being transferred early morning between the 9th and the 10th of the month. So it is January, and the salary vehicle has come, van has come to take it away to the mill from Fountain. Now, a black car comes to that place. It is loaded with there are four criminals who brandish guns, knives, and steal. They steal a princely amount that time, 4,75,000, a princely sum, and escape through the labyrinth of streets, maze of streets in Fort area. At 7 o'clock in the morning, it's very quiet, and vanish. Now, this is a challenge for the Bombay CID. And within 3 or 4 days, the entire gang is caught and every penny of it is recovered.
Okay.
So Bombay CID gets the credit. A few years later, there is Lloyd's Bank dacoity. Lloyd's Bank, then it became Chartered Bank and changed its name several times over the decades, but it was Lloyd's Bank at that time, located again within the Fountain area, but on the main Dadabhai Nauroji Road, then called Hornby Road. A taxi, you see what this bank used to do early morning, its cash would go again in the morning at about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock for Reserve Bank. So they used to send it by a Kalipili, by a taxi, which used to come regularly to take the cash. This had been noticed by a gang.
Okay.
Again, guns were brandished. The poor watchman tried to, the taxi driver, Mr. Kadros, whose son is today also the secretary of the Taxi Association in Bombay. Mr. Kadros becomes a victim because he comes in the way of these dacoits who are determined, and they kill him on the spot. There is a rage all over the city. This cash is gone. A couple of days later, the Bombay CID reaches the Chambal Valley and recovers the cash. Some of it has been spent by them.
So how did they get that? How did they get that tip that the
That is
dacoits have?
the whole network informant system, what we call commonly as khabris. The Bombay CID had a wonderful network. It even has it today. But in those years, in that decade, the 40s and 50s, they had excellent sources of information. They had cultivated lots of informers. And when money is spent all over by this gang, even in Chambal, news reaches the Bombay CID. And it did reach them. And the person who was caught, his name was, one of them was Anoke Lal. He was more famous as a producer of a film whose name was
as a producer, as a producer of a film.
Of a film whose name is there, Ek Teri Nishani.
Okay.
So this is very interesting.
So these are almost like, you know, I mean, a plot of a movie, right? You know, I mean,
exactly.
They're so exciting that someone can just make a movie on them.
Yes, someone should. And actually, even the taxi number BMT 1829, its photograph is there in the Bombay CID office.
Okay.
Well, we can advance into from the 40s. Let us go to directly to 1959. These two cases were sensational: the Bruce Street dacoity of 49, the Lloyds Bank dacoity of 1951. The flag of the Bombay CID is flying very high. Then come 1959. Here, it is not a case of detection, but more of gathering evidence and producing before the courts of the land. The most famous, the Nanavati case, where Commander Kawas Nanavati goes and murders his wife's paramour. And
this has been made into the very popular Bollywood film called Rustam. Yeah.
Called Rustam. Now, this is we have to fall back onto the original. So this Commander Nanavati, after shooting his wife's paramour, comes and surrenders to the Gamdevi police, who instantly tell him to take him to Bombay CID office to Mr. John Lobo, who died recently, then Deputy Commissioner of Police Crime Branch CID, and the Naval Police are also called. He's a naval officer, commander, and he has to be treated with due respect and protocol. And naval police also come in, and then the gathering of evidence and then producing before the High Court. And he's held guilty, not guilty, whatever happens. And later on,
there was a lot of controversy about it, which will not get.
The juries declared him as
not guilty.
But the judges of the High Court were not impressed by the and media coverage was so much that people used to stand at Flora Fountain. Police bandobast was there, and he had become a darling of the people of Bombay. Although he had committed a great deed by taking revenge, whatever. So
I think if I'm not wrong, please correct me. I think it is because of this case that the judicial system kind of changed from the jury system.
The jury system was removed from the very next year. There was a judicial review of this jury influencing the case. So that ended the jury.
True.
And by the way, one movie had come earlier, but may not have interested many. Ye Raaste Hain Pyar Ke.
Okay.
The Rustam is a modern new version.
Actually, now, like, can you please talk about the quadruple murder case of the Temple
View murder case.
Murder case.
Yeah. Come October 1967. Now we have come to the mid 60s. Okay. Everyone knows the road to Kemp's Corner from Opera House. Once you cross Opera House, you are going on Hughes Road. Though it is called Nyayamurthy Patkar Marg, it is still Hughes Road, pronounced very badly by people. They call it Hughes Road. Okay. We go down that to Kemp's Corner. Just before the Kemp's Corner flyover approaches, there are lovely buildings on both sides of the footpath. One of them still stands there as a witness to that incident. It was Temple View. The name of the building is still visible. On the ground floor, the Chunawala family was staying. Now the old Chunawala and his wife and his small grandson and his servant were in the house. Now Chunawala, 2 buildings away from Temple View, there was a shop called, an automobile shop called Car Mart. Chunawala was the owner. Mr. Chunawala had dismissed 2 of his employees, and they were a disgruntled lot. They decided they didn't want money, they didn't want to rob, they just wanted revenge. They came to this house early morning and asked him for some money, saying that they were for wages or compensation for having lost their job. But this did not deter them. They just killed all 4. Mr. and Mrs. Chunawala, the child in the house, as well as the servant in the house. Now, this case was very skillfully detected, not by an informant network, as I told you, but by the detectives of the crime branch CID, because they had burnt some of their clothes. What remained was one shirt on which there was a tag. It is, there is a system even today prevalent in Bombay that every laundry is registered by the Bombay Police. And when a laundry mark is applied, it is in black ink. And each laundry has its own identity. So they found a mark, A1SBH. A1, they checked up when they went to office, the CID office, they checked up the register of laundries and they found A1SBH. SBH was not there, A1 laundry. Now in Bombay, there were quite a few laundries with the name, with A1 as their mark. One was located not far away from Gamdevi, where this incident actually happens, on near Kemp's Corner. In Khetwadi, just about a mile away, at the scene of crime, the detectives find some clothes burnt, destruction of evidence. But one of the shirts which lay there had a mark A1SBH.
And these shirts these shirts belong to the victim,
now,
to the
anybody
family?
who has tried to burn some clothes and gone means a criminal has done it. So by chance that mark had remained. A1SBH, that part of the shirt near the collar may not have got burnt. So when A1SBH was a clue, and A1 all laundries in Bombay city are even today registered with the police. The mark which they use, every laundry, they have a mark, and that is the identity given to them. Now in Bombay, there may have been any number of A1, but in the register, they have found 4 or 5 or something they have mentioned in their records. They went hunting at all the places. In Khetwadi, not very far from this place, there was one A1 laundry. And there they asked them, anyone by name SBH, initials of SBH is there. And it was confirmed. And they waited for 2 days. And this SBH, Sayyid Bakar Hussain was his name. He turns up and gets caught. His partner is also immediately caught. There were 2 assailants. Skillful detection of crime. Laundry mark. Every newspaper carried. Laundry mark detects the case. Leads to the murder.
So like this burnt piece of cloth was belonged to one of the criminals.
Yes, yes.
And what were they doing, trying to burn their own clothes?
Yeah, no. See, some criminals try to burn the evidence, empty place.
Oh, burn the evidence.
House. Yeah, they were trying to burn evidence because there must have been blood splattered on their clothes. Luckily, the shirt remained, the tag remained.
Yeah,
that didn't get burned down.
So, like, this is so interesting that a little piece of evidence. I mean, they did not pay attention to it. It remained, and that's what led to their getting caught.
Skillful detection based on evidence.
Yeah.
Forensic.
Absolutely, and the perseverance of Mumbai Police.
Yes, and by the way, as per the law in those days, these criminals were given the final sentence, death sentence, and executed within 3 months.
Within 3 months.
Within 3 months. High Court, Supreme Court, within a week gave a okay. It's not like today's time, things have changed.
True.
In the earlier case
Nowadays
also, in the taxi case, I told you that taxi driver who was killed in 1951, there also, they were all sentenced to that execution completed within 3 months.
So like,
today we have got different laws. We have got different laws which are favoring the criminals more than the victims. This is my opinion.
So this is one very, very important thing to note, and a huge change which has come upon that, like the criminals in gruesome cases that we kind of read about in newspapers today. The criminals, they kind of they keep on appealing, and their cases kind of linger on
the famous ones.
for months, sometimes years, and which is so unfair for the
recently
victims,
you know about the nearby case. You know about the nearby case. The whole world was watching.
Yeah, true. And it took so long. It took them so long to kind
7 years, 8 years.
give out. Yeah, it's very sad. So now we move to the next decade, Deepak sir.
67,
Which is
only
which?
68, one case is there which is worth mentioning,
Huh.
which also has come in a film. This Raman Raghav case, the serial
Yes.
murderer, his arrest was also because of a skillful detection, not in the crime branch or doing its work of gathering evidence and working around it, but luckily an officer who had been transferred from crime branch CID, then
Huh.
Sub-Inspector Alex Fiallo, he is still alive at the age of 86. He retired as Assistant Commissioner of Police. This Alex Fiallo is posted to Dongri Police Station. And Dongri Police Station, he does night duty and he is walking down to go to his Colaba residence, waiting at the bus stop. He is a very careful, having worked in crime branch, he has seen the descriptive role of criminals wanted. That is in his memory. And he sees one chap walking down the road,
Yeah.
this Raman Raghav, he turns out to be, he finds this chap, his description fits that descriptive role in the police wanted notice. At the same time, he asks him that this umbrella is wet. Where do you live? He said Dharavi. That he's doubtful. This man is not from that area. He's coming from somewhere else. And Alex Fiallo picks him up, bring him to the station, then transfers him to crime branch. But Raman Raghav's detection is a skillful detection
Yes.
by this then young officer Alex Fiallo, who is not
You
in
know,
CID but has been transferred to Dongri Police Station.
it was a very kind of a chance coincidental meeting. I mean, like if the
Yeah,
bus
but
had arrived and if he had got onto the bus, he would have missed him.
he would have missed chance, but then he's an alert officer and
Alert police
even
officer.
very. And when that film was made, Raman Raghav, one film had come recently, some years back. I had recommended to them to go and interview Mr. Alex Fiallo.
True, because it was amazing, like astute observation power on his
Yes.
part.
So that was the skill of the Bombay Police, CID, or even posted to a station.
True, absolutely true.
Okay, so now we want to go to the 70s.
Yeah, now we'll go to the
70s.
next decade. Yeah.
In 70s, it is February 1971. Everyone knows where Metro Cinema is.
Yes.
Next to it, there is a Cafe Metro also. The name of the building is Jahangir Mansion. Most of the people, even today, all the residents are Parsi. Upper floors stays a Parsi family, the Master family, Mr. and Mrs. Master.
Oh.
Mr. Master is 65, his wife, Mrs. Master, is 72. And their one relative, one Darab Shah Setna, 82, who is a managing clerk at solicitors firm Crawford Bailey and Company.
Yeah.
And their one servant in the house. These four people are in the house when one Parsi gentleman, only I should call him gentleman, I can't say just a Parsi gentleman, Firoz Daruwala, comes to meet them. He comes there regularly. He always comes for money. He is always in need of money. He has no steady job.
Yeah.
Normally, these masters give him money. That day, perhaps Mr. Master may not have been in a good mood and didn't want to give him and refused to give him some loan. This Firoz Daruwala simply tops all of them. He stabs them an incredible 143 times with a sword-like instrument, which we commonly called a gupti. Now this fellow commits that, not for now his money, he just done it out of sheer anger. And he goes away. And the police are led to a very long wild goose chase. All sorts of information comes. Police are roaming all over. Sensational. 4 people, all 3 very old and one servant in the house, murdered in the heart of Bombay, next to Metro Cinema, walking distance from CID office and police commissioner's office. However, see, by chance, a Irani Parsi, Mr. Minu Irani, sub-inspector of police in crime branch CID. By chance, he is the investigating officer, and he has a doubt about this particular person, Firoz Daruwala, because once the shop below where this Firoz Daruwala when going, inquiries made that this Parsi gentleman comes and goes, and he goes there to buy some cigarettes and he wants some change for some money. So that cigarette vendor below said this Firoz Daruwala comes again. So a lookout is kept for this Firoz Daruwala. Now Firoz Daruwala is a cunning fellow. He thinks he's smart. What he does, 1971, there is an election for MLA election is there. So he stands as an independent candidate. And his photo comes in every newspaper. He attends the chief minister's conference with all the prospective MLAs. See? Anyway, Mr. Irani has his own way of talking to him. And Mr. Minu Irani interrogates him nicely, finds out so many facts, and then cross checks, and he finds there is a lot of different, because this Firoz Daruwala is to go to all these stock merchants. There is a discrepancy in his statement on which day he went where. He talks about the wrong dealer, and
Okay.
Mr. Irani, well, then puts him through our certain usual police methods, and within that, this fellow is not a regular criminal. He breaks very short, but a very intelligent fellow. Anyway, there's something interesting. Firoz Daruwala, he's sentenced to death once again. He's sentenced to death. But what he does, the Deputy Commissioner of Police at that time, Mr. R.S. Kulkarni, at Diwali time, this Firoz Daruwala sends him a greeting card. And just before his death sentence is to be executed, and he is executed, it is carried out. But he donates his kidneys to the late Mr. Hamid Dalwai, a social reformist who was battling death. So he donates his kidney.
Why does he do this? He
just frustration that particular day he must have wanted money, and this Parsi gentleman and family used to give him money. That particular day they refused,
and he just lost his head. So this
he lost his head. He lost his head. He comes second time. He goes away, gets a gupti. This sword-like instrument. Gupti is not sold openly in the market, but at certain places you get it.
So, like, one kind of feels that there are all kinds of criminals, and and there are all kinds of criminal activities. Some are crimes of passion. Some are instinctive, impulsive acts of criminal activity, and some, in the case of the quadruple murder, is a very well thought out, planned murder which they carry out.
Because except for that money which was refused to him, which he was regularly getting from them, he was regularly going there. He was buying cigarettes at the same shop, and that cigarette shop still exists there. It is at the entrance to that cafe metro. Jahangir mentioned.
And he was a very I would say that he was a very overconfident guy, because even after having committed a crime, he goes ahead and kind of wants to stand for election. So he was a very overconfident fellow.
Yes, very overconfident.
So I think like the saying that that the criminals sometimes they become very overconfident, and then they make a mistake, and that's when the police catches us. So I think it's so interesting to hear about all of these cases, and and some of them are kind of potential stories which can be developed into books, which can be developed into movies.
And all this is recorded, all records, photographs of the criminals, of these Gupti, copies of this, the Gupti itself is in a police museum. Records are there, all newspaper cuttings are there, the statements of the accused, everything is there. Court trial case, the court cases, all papers have been maintained by the Bombay CID.
So I think before we end today's session, I just wanted to ask you one thing, that I'm sure as a historian and as a chronicler of criminal activity across the ages, I'm sure you must be reading the newspapers today, and when you read about the kind of criminal activities that happens and the judicial system, what do you feel as a citizen of of this country, as a chronicler of history? What would be kind of your take on it?
We can't simply think of the past, but the Bombay CID, I'm talking Bombay, use the word Mumbai, whatever this part, it is still Bombay, so I'm using the term Bombay. I have no problem in saying Mumbai. In Marathi or Gujarati we say Mumbai only. But anyway, Bombay CID today also has a reputation, and they do a lot of detection, good work, but new types of crimes have come, and they are competent enough to do their work. As far as the judicial system, I don't wish to pass comments, because the laws have been brought into the country through parliament, and but as I've always said, that judicial process has its own limitations, but the crime branch of CID maintains its own record, and they are doing very good work. I am in touch with them regularly. New crimes, new crime scenarios, and today with CCTV cameras and new types of control rooms and mobile phone and tracking, and all these new things have come. Anyway, by the way, Mr. Minu Irani in the Jahangir mentioned became Assistant Commissioner of Police, served a very long time, got an extension in Crime Branch CID. He served till 1989. He passed away recently.
Great. So
I kept in touch with all these officers actually.
Yeah. I think, I think your book, Deepak sir, is a kind of a, is a treasure for true crime lovers, and who like to, and by true crime lovers I mean people who are only interested in
Yeah, yeah,
knowing about the crimes and not committing them.
yes,
So, kind of novelists and cinema makers, directors, producers, etc. So, like you have a lot of very interesting stories, and I'm sure your book kind of delves more on, these and many other cases talk about
yes.
today.
Like the Charles
And
Sobra's arrest in 1986.
yeah,
Uh, then Inspector, later Assistant Commissioner Mr. Zende. Now he's 80 years old and fighting fit and living in Australia, of all the
yeah.
places. And we regularly, he comes to Bombay, we regularly go to police headquarters, down memory lane. Charles Sobraj
So,
arrest is known, and he's respected in whenever he goes to Singapore to meet his daughter, he goes to New Zealand to meet his other daughter, goes to Australia to meet his son. He's welcomed at the passport control. They salute him because of that arresting Charles Sobraj, who was wanted by all these countries.
all these countries, true.
And he
So,
says he's the most respected man.
I think it's, it's become very common for all of us and for the common man to kind of, speak in very disparaging tone and
Yes.
terms about the police. But when one reads about the history of the police force, one realizes how old an institution they are, and they've been continuously serving the country and doing such solving such interesting cases, important cases, and like one only kind of feels more admiration and pride, and and hopes that these institutions carry on and get better with time. So
You have
thank you,
put it
Deepak sir.
beautifully.
Thank
You have
you.
put it beautifully. Bombay CID has a reputation of
Yeah,
from 1909, 6th of
yeah,
June it was created, and
true.
it is functioning. Before that there was no CID. So 1909 that the CID, the original document creation of CID is also a part of my book. I'll send it to you
Oh,
separately.
amazing, amazing. So,
The
so
order
Deepak sir,
creating the CID.
one thing you can be sure of, because since I'm writing a novel on true crime, though it is not a act of crime committed here in India, it's inspired from like from something else which I don't want to talk about here. This is not the right
Yes.
forum for that. But you can be sure that I'm going to be calling you up to kind of pick your mind about how the police works and various things, and check up with you. And I hope you stay safe, sir, during the
Uh,
lockdown and this pandemic.
and
Please do
yeah,
take care of
and
yourself.
yeah, and one more
Bombay,
thing, last thing, is
yeah.
that I have just completed a book on the Maharashtra State Police, of which the
Okay.
Bombay City Police, Greater Bombay
Uh,
Police, is a part. The State Police has got many more cases beyond Bombay. It is pertaining to the state. There are Dr. Lagu case. The doctor, as Sherlock Holmes described, a doctor is the person who can commit the perfect crime. This was a 1950s case. Many more cases are there of the whole state. And that book
okay.
is already printed, but because of the lockdown, the release has not yet taken
Of
place.
course, of course. I would
It will
love to.
contain
I would
Bombay
love to get
cases.
a copy of the book. Buy a copy of the book when the
Yeah,
lockdown is
yeah, it will
lifted.
be released.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for
It's
taking
wonderful
out time.
interacting with you. Lovely.
Yeah, lovely.
Good night.
Thank you
Bye.
for talking in such details about the various cases, the old cases, and thank you so much.
Okay.
Good night, and
Good night. Good night.
stay safe, all of you.
Thank
Take
you.
care of
Thank you.
yourself,